is up, Salt community? Welcome back to the Monochrome Podcast. We are so excited and grateful that you are here, spending a few minutes with us on your commute or as you work or whatever you're doing. So we hope that we bring value to your day, to your week, introduce some new ideas to you. We are not the experts. We don't know everything, but we love to ask questions and think of new creative things and find stuff and hunt it down. So think of us as your little research people to bring new ideas. It can be so valuable to get that basis, and so we hope that we're able to contribute to that. But I'm here with the SALT director, the one, the only, Caitlin Johnson. How are you today, Caitlin?
Hello. I'm doing fantastic. Podcast days are my favorite. I smile all day. I love recording a podcast episode.
So you asked me on the last episode we did together, but I'm going to ask you this time.
Oh boy.
It's summer. This is coming out in the middle of summer. So what is your favorite summer activity besides getting sunburnt? As has been over the past 2 weeks.
I do sunburn a lot. It's true. Well, at the time that this episode is releasing, I will be headed to Michigan to be on the lake for a couple of days. I love wakeboarding, wake surfing. Those are my two water sports that I just love doing.
Yes.
But then the leisurely, kayaking or paddle boarding, I love those things too. Mental health studies have shown that being around water and trees actually heal your brain and help your mental health. So not just because it's fun, I'm like, look, I'm healing. I'm getting better at being a person.
I can totally get on board with that.
I'm all for being around trees and water in the summer. Yeah.
Yes. Trees and waters.
Trees and water.
Yeah, we're hippies over here, I guess.
Oh yeah.
But
we're crunchy.
Good. I love it. If you've been listening to the podcast the whole season, or if you've just started, we have a whole season of great interviews that you should go back and listen to. But we genuinely want to know what would be most valuable to you. So we're always trying to cater this. That's why we try to keep it short. That's why we do the interviews the way we do, the segments the way we do, is because we want to bring and pack in as much valuable insight and ideas and content as possible in these short videos. And so if you would go into the show notes, just take a few minutes, fill out the feedback form, let us know how we've been doing, what's been valuable to you, what you would like to see in the next season, so that as we plan that, we can do what's going to cater specifically to you. And so if you listen to this, you might as well go do that because you're listening. And so hopefully you'll be listening next season. Yeah. And so you might as well put your 2 cents in on what you think should be included, and
when
then
you can tell people,
hopefully we'll hit it.
I like your podcast, but I'd listen to it more if you did this. Like, you're basically crafting your own podcast. Why not do it?
Yeah. It's Burger King. Have it your way.
Without all the work.
Exactly. Yeah. But also, if you fill that out, we're going to be giving out some swag bags, some merch, some different stuff, books, things like that. So you could get some cool SALT stuff and some books and resources if you fill it out. So just take a few minutes, go down there and do that. But without further ado, Caitlin, you have some SALT news.
Yes,
Spill the beans.
I feel like this topic very much is what we talk about in our intro of we want to ask questions. We don't necessarily have the answers, but we want to ask questions to help everyone find the right answer. And this one I'm excited to talk to you specifically about because I know you'll have a lot of insights into it. But I've just been reading up about SEO and the change from SEO to GEO, which any of you who are like, oh my gosh, the acronyms, this is not an episode for me. Don't worry, let me explain it. SEO is the search engine optimization. In layman's terms, it's when you go Google a sentence like, what's the best burgers in Nashville? It's all the websites that come up first and the links to go, look up these websites, whether it's Yelp saying top 10 best burgers in Nashville, whatever. SEO is that organic, websites that have gotten the best hits and the best traffic and the best keywords to fit what you searched. GEO is the new thing that you see happening that maybe you haven't even realized, but GEO is the generative engine optimization. And this is when AI does a little summary at the top because AI is now scanning all these websites and it will give you a summary saying, best burger in Nashville used to be, such and such place, but popular opinion says it's now this. They're scanning all these websites that appeared in the SEO and they're pulling a summary for you. But this is the new trend that we're seeing is the SEO to GEO flip. And it's not only that Google is laying this out differently, we have an AI summary at the top, But it's the fact that I think our generation and younger generations, they're not even bothering to click the websites anymore to really go to it and say, oh, well, what does this website have to say? Or, what is whatever. Like their final result is that AI summary. They don't go any further. They just read that and they're like, oh, this is the answer. And there's pros and cons to that. But there is this whole shift from the SEO to the GEO that I think we're going to see. I mean, I've already noticed, well, I didn't notice till I read an article about this, that I stopped searching the way I used to because of these AI summaries. I just read the summary and I'm like, oh, there's my answer, and I quit. But we're going to see how it affects all these different websites and churches. But the biggest thing I think that I've learned from this new GEO is that people who were never noticed before now have a chance. They might get bumped up depending on what kind of content is on the website that the AI is pulling. So would love to hear your thoughts. Like, have you noticed that you started searching differently, or that you stopped after the search, you didn't click on sites further?
Yeah, it's very interesting. It's definitely I think there's a shift from Google was a little late on this when ChatGPT launched, but they did eventually hop on board with having the AI stuff at the top. You can actually make ChatGPT your default search engine, which I've considered heavily, which is shocking because I'm a heavy Chrome user.
Yeah.
But anyway.
I forget that's a shift too, that you have completely used ChatGPT as your search engine now. Yeah.
I use it a lot. Yeah, I still use Google, but if I'm looking for complex answers or to solve tasks, ChatGPT is where I go. If I'm looking for a specific company or location or a restaurant, I probably will still go to Google first. So it is an interesting shift. I think it's interesting too to think about that these two are going to have some interplay. And so if you have really great SEO, that is going to help your GEO, because
Definitely.
when you look into ChatGPT, hey, find some churches in my area, it's probably taking some form of that prompt and just searching that and looking at the top 20 pages or so to find churches in your area and then feeding you those answers. So if you have bad SEO, you're probably not going to show up as well on GEO. But I'm curious to see. I don't know. I need to look into this because I'm curious. SEO is very much a keywords game and all that kind of stuff. And having, 10 ways to, pray better, blog posts and things like that. I don't know if GEO is going to play into that as much, or is it going to be more of, hey, here's a giant ebook on my website with insane amount of text, and that plays better into GEO. I don't know. I'm curious to see.
The stuff I've been reading, I will say, it's not news to us at SALT, and if you've been part of the SALT community, it's not news to you, but story is king. And having a story to tell, which we obviously have the greatest story of all, and many stories from the Bible to pull from, but of how to live, But anyway, story is king. And apparently AI is pulling more story-based things to put in its top summaries and results and that kind of stuff.
That makes a lot of sense.
And so what people are saying right now is have some practical pieces and tips and smaller grabbable items from a story for AI to quickly grab to throw up in its summary or in its search, but then have a full story, a robust, a well-told story that's clear and articulate, on your site, because for whatever reason, it's going to those story-based things. And I loved hearing that, because I'm like, people have been preaching this for years. We have, the workshops always talking about how to craft your stories at church, how to do testimonials well, things like that. So we have always harped on story is so important. And it's amazing that these tech worlds are figuring that out too, of, stories really are the most important thing. And now we're teaching technology to find the stories, not just, the bullet points kind of stuff. So.
Yeah, I think it'll be a huge shift. I think it's interesting too, because the AI is going to pull different stuff out than the SEO did. And so, the age-old example of China 1, China number 1, the reason they name those restaurants that is because they know it's going to rank the highest when you go to search for a Chinese restaurant.
Yeah. Isn't that crazy? We change our business name based on rankings.
And so, the ideal, church name for SEO would be Church Near Me. But no one's going to name their church Near Me. But anyway,
if you it'll be because of this podcast, you've got to let us know.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure there's one out there, but it'll be interesting to see how some of that changes with hey, what our church name is, or whether or not we're top of the alphabet or number one or have the best SEO descriptions maybe isn't going to be as important as it was, and the content itself and what, like you said, the story it's telling, what it's explaining, how you're showing who your church is going to be more important because that AI is going to have a more comprehensive look at your page than SEO will. So I don't know. We'll see. I think it'll be interesting to see how all that plays out.
We have some amazing partners who have helped make this podcast happen this year. And our friends at Amplio Systems are not just there to install gear, but they are also church leaders who've been in the trenches. They know the pressures of Sunday, they know what you're going through, and they believe your AV system should support your ministry and not distract from it. We love Amplio because they walk with churches from start to finish. They design amazing, future-proof, volunteer-friendly systems that help people encounter Jesus and, again, not distract from it, which we know can sometimes be a problem with the AV systems. But you can meet Amplio, you can talk to them, hear more about how they could help your church specifically. You can meet them at the Worship Classic on October 7th, which is the day before SALT. So come to Nashville, go golfing with Amplio at the Worship Classic, and then come to SALT together. It is free, which is an extra bonus, and they would love to hear your story. But if you want to check out more info, learn more about the Worship Classic or what Amplio does, just click the link in the show notes.
We love our friends at Amplio. Please go check that out. But up next, we're going to switch things up.
Ooh, I'm going
to do a staff meeting moment. So I love leadership and I love all of that. And I think it's super fun. And so this is something I came across that I was like, man, that was so valuable and I'd love to share it. And so I'm doing the staff meeting moment this week. Basically at my church, we did this as part of our worship staff team. And it's called, I don't know what it's from originally. So if you know who to attribute it to, please do that. But anyway, it's the 4-list exercise. This can take anywhere from 10 to 15 to 20 minutes, depending on how in depth you want to go. But I feel like this is a great way to just kind of evaluate where you're at. It's easy as a leader or as a team to always be looking forward, or only see the problems and kind of get closed-minded on things. So this is a great way to kind of expand, bring everyone together, clear the air on some stuff, and just have open and honest conversation as a team. So here are the 4 lists. I also have a little kind of download, if you click the link in the show notes, that'll just kind of give you an easy worksheet to do it on, but you can just do this on a whiteboard too if you want. But the 4 lists are what's working, wins, what's going well, what are the things we're doing that are being successful, what's not working, so things that are just not happening the way they need to, things that aren't accomplishing the goals that you guys have set, what's confusing. So this could be things that simple as I don't understand why we do, a reflection time after the sermon, or why it's only one song, or why does the pastor get up and sing with us, during his sermon, or, what are the things that are confusing? What are the things that don't make sense? Why don't we have a process for this? Or do we have a process for this? I don't know. I've never seen it. So anything like that, that can be a good one just to clear things up. And then the last one is what's missing. So this can be we don't have this, or we need this, or I feel like we're missing a staff member here, or we're missing, a system in this area, or so those different things. So it's important to be really open and honest here. Have set it up as a time to be open as a team. One of the things they shared that we've heard shared is communication can be tough, or we feel like we're in silos, or certain people are communicating better with others, and so being open to hey, this is your time to if something's not working, share it so that we can fix it. And something that my leader shared that was really insightful is a lot of times just bringing attention to a problem solves the problem. Just being aware of it can solve a lot of issues. But then if it's not, awareness doesn't solve the problem, then start diving into, what you need to fix to do that. But this is a great way to kind of encourage the team, but also address things that need to be addressed. It takes about 30 to 40 minutes. That's kind of it. Go download it. Be curious to see what you think.
I love it. You could split that up by department. You could have a day of just talking about the what's confusing, or I'm trying to remember the 4 categories because I don't have that resource pulled up. What's missing, what's confusing. and then
what's
another
not
day
working.
to like dive into the other two. Yeah.
Yeah. And there's sometimes some overlap between what's confusing and what's not working and what's missing. But usually you can, after discussing it, you can kind of land it in some spot. But it's really just a kind of prompt discussion about those things.
That's great. Those are conversations we all need to have. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Ugh, I love it. Well, I want to make sure to take a moment in today's episode to remind you all that for listening in today, you get $20 off a SALT ticket for our conference in October. It's happening October 8th through 10th of this year in Nashville, Tennessee. If you have not gotten your ticket yet, go to salt2025.com. There's a link in our show notes. Go to register, and there's a little code box. You can put in the word monochrome. Hopefully you know how to spell that. And if not, that's fine. Just look at your Spotify or Apple or your podcast, whatever you're listening to, YouTube right now, and you will see it spelled out for you. But put monochrome in that code box and you can get $20 off. I want to make sure to say this because we are running out of space. We have sold out the whole conference before. We have sold out just certain ticket types. We have sold out certain master classes that we offer in those tickets. So I'm saying that I do not want you to miss out. Do not wait to go get tickets. Right now, our VIP ticket, which is called Premium Plus, there are 12 tickets left. So there's still time to get them if you don't dawdle. And then we also have master classes, which I mentioned. They're included in our Premium and Premium Plus tickets. So if you want to do a 4-hour deep dive with someone who really knows their stuff, we've got a few different topics. Head over again to salt25.com. You can check out the 4 different options that we're offering. And if you get a Premium or Premium Plus ticket, you can be part of those deep dives. Again, these have sold out in the past. Certain classes sell out. They run out of space. So please go save your seat ASAP. We want to see you and or your team at SALT this year.
What's up, guys? It is JT here from the podcast. I am so honored and thankful to have Maryanne George back on the podcast for a full dedicated interview. Welcome, Maryanne.
So good to be here.
If you guys don't know who Maryanne George is, welcome to church, welcome to worship, welcome to what it is to be in that world. She is a 5-time Grammy Award-winning artist, songwriter, worship leader. She has an incredible gift for just speaking truth in situations. You may know her from Maverick City. She's impacted some of the most incredible worship songs over the past 10 years. She grew up in New York, a daughter of immigrants, leading worship in her home church. She has her own solo EP out called Not Just Stories and a single called Labor, which I listened to for the first time a couple weeks ago. And we're having another daughter this year. And so I was like, I'm not a woman, but I was crying. I was like, oh man, this is, yeah. So incredible. She's also a counselor, an artist, obviously, and a violinist. Which many people don't know. So, and I feel like we connect on that. I grew up, so I went through the Suzuki book for,
my gosh,
yeah,
me too.
Yeah.
Oh man,
so
you're OG.
Yeah, exactly. I've not played in a long time, so I'm sure if I pulled it out, it would.
You played violin?
Be bad. Yeah, I played violin. Yeah.
Oh,
so,
shoot. Okay.
yeah, classically trained, as they say, and all that good stuff. So it's fun. That's a great musical starting point.
It is.
I feel like. Yeah. So much. Anyway, I could go on that forever. But she was here in SALT 2024. Super excited to have her back, and so super pumped to have her. But we're just gonna jump in. If you want to know more about Maryanne's background, you're more than welcome to go look her up and learn more about her. But I'm really wanting to get down to the nitty gritty on this interview. So if that's cool with you, we'll jump in.
Yes, let's get in.
First, I want to say, incredible. I thank God just hit golden.
I know.
That's insane.
Crazy. So crazy.
Yeah.
I can't believe that. But, yeah.
What's grateful. That like to have a song that you contribute to and were a part of writing and making popular? What does that mean? And why do you think people connected with it on the level that they have over the past, 4 or 5 years?
Every time I think about that song, I think about the session that we had, and it was truly such an interesting session. I would have never thought that would be the biggest song that I've ever written, pretty much. But I'm grateful because Aaron Moses was the one that kind of like spearheaded a lot of that session. He came in with that idea, but there was
Yeah.
something about it that was just so celebratory. And when we originally wrote it, it was not this fast paced type of song.
Okay. Interesting.
And through the production, we had Chuck Butler. He was producing. We were at his studio at his house, and he had just put some production on it that made it seem a lot faster.
Yeah.
And then when we came to doing the Upper Room live recording with Mav, we almost didn't have this song on there. And I remember Dante was kind of like, no, we need this song. Like we need, and he kind of rewrote the bridge.
Yeah.
And so we finally got it, and the room just kind of like exploded. And it was during 2020, which was very like a very tough year.
Yes.
And I think for everyone to just kind of be in the same room, which was, you know, looking back on it, was probably not the smartest thing because we all literally almost died from COVID like the next week. But in the room,
it was worth it.
It was so electric. It was so electric and like just so like powerful. Like we all finished that recording. We were like, whoa, there's something on that song. Like that's undeniable. And I think it's just still, even now, it's like every time you sing it, it's just like, I see people light up and I see the way that the power of the gospel is just like ignites in people when they sing it. And it's like one of those songs where when you start singing it, even if you don't necessarily know God or know the gospel, it starts like your body responds to the truth of the song. And I think that's why it's doing so well. And to be honest, I don't think about how well it's doing. It's not like something I am like thinking about a lot, you know. Like I never, you know what's so funny, guys? I feel like when you're an artist, you never get the notifications that these things are happening. I find out, like you find out,
the same way everyone else does.
I'm like, oh, the song just went gold. Like I'm finding it out on like stories on Instagram, and I'm like, people are tagging me, and I'm like, oh wow, you would think you'd get an email, like no, not at all.
There's like no notification, like hey, this is gonna happen.
And you know what?
Like
maybe that's better. Maybe that's better because it's kind of nice that you just never know. Anyway, but it's just great. I'm grateful. I'm really grateful to see what God did with it, and I'm excited to see how the song continues to reach the whole world. And I'm grateful. You know.
Yeah, that's incredible. I hope it has like a big resurgence again after Golden Gold, and like I hadn't even thought of it, but just the fact that like you guys wrote and produced a song called "I Thank God" during one of the more difficult times in human history, frankly. Like, I think it just speaks to like how powerful that message of like, even in situations like this, we can thank God for what's going on. So,
and I'm grateful. I pray that the further it goes is just an indication of how it's reaching, the gospel is going further, you know? And so that was our heart behind writing it. And I think it's doing exactly what we prayed it would do. So I'm grateful.
Yeah, that's amazing.
I thank God.
I thank God. Amen. That's right. Well, congratulations. That's so cool. Something that, like, as I was preparing for this interview and we talked a little bit about this before, that I value so much just about you and your heart and how you lead and how you have conversations is you are kind of unfiltered. You talk about your journey a lot and a lot of honesty behind that. And you bring up conversations that aren't talked a lot about in church spaces. And so we're going to get into that a little bit later too. But where for you does that like conviction and boldness come from to be like, hey, this is something that I have experienced or seen in whether it's Big C Church or worship or, as far as, any of that you're able to just say what you believe without like conforming to or expectations that, you don't talk about that stuff?
This is such an interesting question because I feel like this boldness thing has always been, I've never really seen it as boldness. I really see it as this really like, it's a blessing and a curse sometimes because I feel like I cannot be anything but myself.
Yes.
And the second that I'm something else, like my whole internal system resist.
Yeah.
So I've always been the kid growing up that was like a little bit of the black sheep. Like I do think my parents probably looked at me and be like, you're so problematic. And I was always like labeled as a little bit more rebellious. And like, I always asked questions. I was very curious. And like, I remember as a kid, like just doing things on my own or trying to figure things out on my own. I'm like the eldest firstborn daughter of immigrants. And so it's just like, you kind of like part of my life mission, I felt, was to like strive to fit into this world that my parents brought me into and in this society, this culture, but still managed to like stay true to like the values and who I am. And like, and so I've always had this like thing of like pushing against a norm. And, you know, one of the things I think that made Mav so powerful was that each of us was that in our communities, and we came together, and it's Maverick, right? It's a literal Maverick. And if we actually started to think about it, each one of us in the group, we all became Mavericks in our own communities, in our own ways. We were doing things that were really hard. And so I feel like that boldness, as maybe outward as it feels now, like, you know, it's described as boldness now, and it's very positively put. But in the when I was younger, I feel like I was a black sheep. I felt like a rebel. I felt like, you know, people didn't take me seriously all the time because I was so sticking to but I really now look at it and I'm like, man, God really had put in me this drive for authenticity and to be myself and to speak out and it was never meant to make people super happy. Like if you're calling out or pushing for change or, you know, so I've always kind of like looked at it as this negative thing. And I think in the last, like since having a daughter too, like in the last 5 years, I feel like I've looked at it as like a blessing in some ways, but some of those things one of the things that comes with that is just kind of knowing you're going to be misunderstood by most people. And especially sometimes even the church and speaking out about things that, you know, many people probably feel and are afraid to talk about. And I think if I'm on this earth and it's going to kill me anyway to not talk about it, might as well share, you know, the true experience of it and let people know that, you know, you're not alone in the feeling. Like people look at me and they see the awards sometimes or the accolades before they realize me as the person. But people in my life who walk with me every day, my parents, my friends, like they see the true nitty gritty of my life and they see the fact that like, Maryanne's always kind of been this way. His way. It's crazy that she's getting awards for now being the way she is, but it's always been this thing. So I do feel like that is it's a God thing. Like he gives me, and it has like, there are times where I can use it for the Lord and there are times where I have not, right? It's the same boldness. Sometimes I've spoken on the wrong thing as a kid, like, or I've done the wrong thing. And like, I've had to learn over time, like, okay, what does it mean to take this gift that God's given me, but actually use it for good and for his kingdom and for, you know, speaking truth and authenticity to people and encouraging people, you know. So I've had to pivot sometimes, but now I look at it as like, okay, like I understand this is something God's given me. I understand it's not going to always be something people understand and or they may not agree, and that's okay. And so yeah, I'm at this point where I'm just like, it is what it is. Like I'm gonna speak on what God's speaking on me, like speaking to me about. And I'm gonna be honest about it. Like, you know, what else is there? I want to be able to stand before the Lord and be like, I did the best I could, and I stand before you like honestly saying like I tried. And so that's really my heart. And anything I do, whether it's music or being a mother or being a friend, like I push for hard conversations sometimes. I will try to be as authentic as possible, even in what I wear, even in what I eat, and, you know, the songs I write, the books I read, like everything. It's just a part of it's a part of who I am. It's really a part of who I am.
I love that. And we talk on this podcast, we talk a lot about like leadership and what does that look like in the church. And I feel like so often, like you maybe have that tendency or that boldness growing up, it gets like beat out of you to like not be that way. And it's like, no, like when you're young, obviously, I mean, I'm this way. I'm really blunt and sometimes very much to my detriment. But it's like, it just has to, you got to give God time to refine it and to channel it and to give you that purpose and the place to lead and the right things to focus on. And then all of a sudden that, like, you know, I don't know what to call it, anger, aggression, buck in the system kind of mentality all of a sudden becomes that, like, oh, that person's really bold about this and cares about it. And so, yeah, I love that. But very, very cool. So what, kind of thinking of that, what conversations specifically have been on your heart in this season over the past, you know, year, becoming a mother and like all of that kind of stuff? What's kind of shifted in your world to where you're like, hey, I feel like this is what we need to be talking about?
That's a
super
great,
open-ended, but
no, it is. But I mean, there's something that's coming to my mind. So clearly it's a good question. You know, I think one of the things I've been, I don't want to say struggling with, but maybe like, coming to terms with is, you know, as an artist who has done a lot, I think, well, I've done a lot in a short time, it feels.
yeah.
And now I feel like, you know, I have a daughter and things are not as quick as they used to be. Like, I feel like I've taken a step back and it's been so necessary and nice to kind of take the step back. And I think a lot of times in our industry now, if I'm talking about just artists and, you know, less about church, but just music and artists, and, maybe to some extent church too, but I think I see a lot of people doing a lot and I'm just kind of like, and there's nothing wrong with doing things, but it's like, are we like taking the time to like live our lives a little bit and just like stop feeding into this like weird parasocial capitalism stuff that's happening online? Like, where it's like you almost need to like act like you're feeding a consumer, like all this stuff. And it's like, I'm not against like creating art. I'm not, but I think a lot of the art we're creating just feels like fast food and not like real gourmet, like kind of lived in, like when you go to a Michelin star restaurant, no one's gonna, I've not even gone to a Michelin star. So we're gonna throw that analogy out. Never mind. If you go to a good restaurant,
if you went to one.
like, but what I'm saying is like, when you go to like a restaurant where, okay, the chef is known for something, right? Whatever.
Yeah.
Like, you know what you're getting, but most of the time when you're getting the food, it is like a representation of the chef. Like what he, you know, like versus you go get McDonald's, it's a representation of the freezer they put the chicken nuggets in. Like, it's not, you know what I'm saying? It's not the same.
What is that representing?
Right. What is that representing? And I feel like sometimes, and this is not a knock on anybody, because I do think there is a time to like, I do think people can get lazy and sit in like I'm waiting and, you know, not really live, but like, there's a balance of like doing and like living. And it has to be like really, really done well. Like, and I think like, I think people get afraid of like irrelevance and they just kind of create a lot of things that don't necessarily feel authentic to them. And it's not substantial sometimes. And I'm not complaining because I don't want people to feel discouraged from creating something, but just if it means something to you and it really sparks something within you, then do it, you know, because sometimes the things you create are not always meant to be shared and it could be for you. Yeah. And I think there's like learning that. And I've been in this, I'm like so happy where I'm at right now. Like I have been on the slow process of creating for the next thing. I was just sharing that like, I'm always creating something. There's never a time where I'm not thinking of something. Literally this morning at like 5 a.m. I was like, lying in bed, like thinking of some melody, and now I can't even tell you what it is, but I'm like, I was thinking about it. But it's like, I'm always creating towards something, but I've learned the beauty and it's almost like a slow burn, like taking the time to like really process, feel everything and like discover new things and like bring it into a studio and like create from that place. Like, and it's the small things. Like, it's like, you know, I was like listening, this is so dumb, but let me explain. My daughter's obsessed with Peppa Pig. Peppa Pig's mom just had a baby. Okay.
Oh, wow.
They have a new baby. So, and it's a whole marketing thing where they're like created a whole, like, you know, branding thing. So they, correct. And so they created an album, and the album, like a music album that that we now, this is the soundtrack to my life now. Peppa meets the baby. Every mother of a toddler with a girl knows, or every parent. Yeah. So, but they used like different sounds in the new album.
Okay.
And I'm like drawn to it. And I'm just like, oh, interesting. Like they definitely used a different type of, like, I don't know. They used something different. So now I'm like thinking about that. And I'm like,
we're going to hear some Peppa Pig callbacks in the next Maryanne George album.
We might hear some Peppa Pig samples in my next track. So, but what I'm saying is that to me is like, that to me is the beauty of discovery. Like, it's just like learning to do things and discover things on your own through just life, like through life. And it's like different things will inspire me. And I'm kind of drawn more to that. I just recently was telling some people that I'm really drawn to classical literature, and I'm trying to go back into some of that, and like Tolstoy and Dumas, and like, you know, and I'm trying to like get into some of that slowly but surely. And I'm drawn to that because I do feel like classical literature tells you something about the times, and I'm drawn to that. Like, so I'm kind of like using like the things I'm drawn to inform the things I create. And I wish more people got off their phone and did that. And I'm on my phone entirely too much. So but I'm feeling that pull to kind of just go inward a little bit and just discover things and on my own. And I think that's something that's a conversation I'm having with a lot of artists, where I'm just kind of like, what are you discovering? Like, what are you learning that you're not being told to like, or told to do?
Yeah.
Or, you know, like people telling you what to wear, people telling you what to listen to, what trend to follow. Like, no, like take that out for a second. What are you, even if it's dumb, what are you drawn to? Well, dumb in your eyes, but like, what are you drawn to? Because chances are that's probably where you're going to find more of your authentic kind of self coming out.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what I wish more people kind of normalized. But I mean, I feel weird saying that because I'm also just like, well, if people just stopped creating, then we would have nothing.
Yeah.
But I feel like the small things we'd have, we would know are real and authentic.
Yeah. I think you're nailing it on the head, and like there's a lot to unpack there. So, but I think,
let me talk for like so long. You're so patient. Oh my gosh.
I want to hear the guests speak. People don't get on this podcast because they love to listen to me. I'll tell you that much. They're on here to hear from the people. Yes. But I think like kind of what you're getting at is like, I love this authenticity vibe. And I feel like as creatives, I think especially with the like social media world, and that's kind of been created there, and the like, man, you got to put out an album every year and like that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. It's so easy to jump to the creation part and just put something out that you're like, hey, I know that 2 choruses and a bridge is going to hit, and you know, we're going to build up and then go back to the one, and boom, like that's going to be, and maybe it will do well, but it's not your authentic self. And so maybe it's like, you know, it's not as fulfilling, or maybe it won't. And so I think, you know, too, like it's easy to go on social media and say what you think is right or going to hit, but maybe you're not actually living that way. And then it's going to miss because people are some people are going to know that's not who you are, you know? And
then I'm like, who am I? It's like, anytime I say this, I also ask myself, like, who am I to say what's right or wrong? Like, you know, what might be authentic to like one artist might be really, it may not hit me the same way. And I think that's 100%. What I'm learning. It's okay. It's okay for it to not hit me the same way. You know, like it's all right. I'm okay with that, and being okay with that. Like not everything is going to resonate with me, and that's all right. There are things that resonate with me, and there are things that won't. And that's what makes me human. I'm not going to like everything.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
No, I love that. That's great. I hope that sparks some conversations for people.
Yeah, hope so.
So we'll jump on to the next question. This is a little bit of a shift, but not too much. You have a master's, correct, in mental health counseling?
I do.
That is crazy. You're like a Renaissance.
It's so crazy. I forget that.
Yeah. So when Maryanne is speaking, on mental health, she's not just throwing it out there. She is educated and knows what she's talking about. But so that's something a lot of people might not know. You've said that you're not a practicing counselor, but I would say, like, kind of what we talked about with I Thank God, I would say that is your practice. So that's just me affirming you. Like, you are counseling people. I know when that came out during COVID and I was listening to it, it was like impactful for me. So, but anyway, how with that kind of deeper background of mental health, how has your understanding of that shaped how you approach just life as an artist? You kind of touched on that earlier of like people see you kind of through the lens of, what they know you as, or the music they've heard you from, or from a stage. But like you said, like you're just a normal person. You go buy your groceries and drop your kids off at school and all that. And so how has like that helped you in that life? And then two, like how has that kind of helped you deal with the pressure of being an artist and feeling like you have to produce and have to put something out and go be on tour and all of that?
Yeah, I'm really grateful that, before, any of the things I did ever became viral or whatever, like I did this degree, because I do feel like even in my personal life, doing that whole program really clarified so much for me, or just brought understanding to a lot of the reasons why I am the way that I am, but also the people around me are the way that they are. And I think it gave me a good glimpse into the human condition. And I didn't get it's not like a Christian counseling degree. So it kind of opened me up to speak to people who maybe didn't grow up in the church. And I got to see a very visceral kind of real worldly view of what mental health is, and how a world without God, or a person without God struggles with mental health. Because I do feel like there is a spiritual component to literally everything. And so there have been times where I'm in the room with clients, and not anymore, this is previously, but I'll be in the room with clients and I can literally feel the presence of God in the room. Like I know God is using me as a conduit of the gospel or grace. And so as a therapist, you don't really bring up anything religious unless the client does first. So I will have to be creative about ways to show people. So whether it's through you can ask, I remember there was a specific time where, I felt that the client needed a hug, and I asked, is it okay for me to hug you right now? And they just shared something really personal and painful. And I remember asking God in that moment, okay, through my hug, let her feel Jesus, or something different. And she hugs me and she cries. I cry because I'm feeling the heaviness of what she's sharing or what she had shared. And she's feeling the acceptance and the peace that I'm hoping that she's feeling. So it's moments like that where I feel inform the songs that I've written too, where I'm people are going through things all the time and they need encouragement. And a lot of times what they're looking for is, all the time, really, what they're looking for is in scripture and in the Lord and in the gospel. And so I'm always trying to find ways for the Lord. I don't necessarily feel like a song has to say Jesus for it to be used by God.
No, 100%.
That's limiting the power of God. And so it's just there are times where I'm in that room and I'm not a mention of Jesus or the gospel or whatever, but it's through my life. My life is the conduit of his grace and his goodness and his love. And I let that lead, and I listen with those ears, and I listen with, that heart. And, I do the same because in songwriting, I feel like I'm doing the same. I'm listening to people and hearing where they're at. Because a lot of times when we write songs, it's the songwriters are walking through that specific thing before it's coming to the church. Like you guys are hearing I Thank God now, but when Aaron wrote that, like, you know, a while back and brought into the session, like that was his experience that he started off, and then we all ended up contributing a part of our story in there. And so I do feel that my background, I feel like, informs me on how to ask questions and how to like maybe get to the heart of something without breaking someone down, if that makes sense. Like I want people to feel safe, and writing is such a vulnerable, I feel like I say this a lot, but it's like group therapy. It's like being in a therapy session with 3 other people or 4 other people, and you're sharing about what God is teaching. And it's very emotional at times. Like I'm always exhausted after one session. I'm like, okay, guys, this is too much emotional expenditure for me. But yeah, like it's a very vulnerable process, and it involves you to be very honest with yourself. And so I do feel like a lot of my skills that I ended up learning in counseling are being used in a writing room. And I'm grateful for that. I'm like, I'm so grateful God let me do that first and then brought me into songwriting, because I do feel like I'm almost facilitating sessions at times. And really great songwriters actually act like counselors in a session. Like I recently had an experience where I was writing with one of my friends, and he's a very well-known songwriter. I'd never really written with him before, but we got into a point in the session where it was just so like down, like everyone was, we were all really sad about the way that we were feeling about something. And he just facilitated that session so well. He was just like he asked us a question where he was like, what is the purest thing in your life right now? And just that question itself, like turned and shifted the feeling in the room. And we created this song that was so beautiful just from that one question of like, what is the purest thing? And I feel like that is so clutch. Like, I'm just like, wow. Like, I literally, after I was like, do you have like some degree in counseling? Like, because you just facilitated that so well. But it's also like, I feel like everybody has an idea of mental health because it's life. It's literally living and the questions that come up when we live, and you know, things like that. So hopefully that answered your question. But
no, it did.
I
think it's incredible. And like, I've done this is silly for me to even mention, just a little bit of songwriting, like with some friends, and we wrote a song. But it, like, even just that little experience, it was like, man, this is very, like, to do this on any sort of level that like is going to make anything decent is very vulnerable. And so to have that like ability to empathize, to read the room, to feel like understand like what you said, what people are going through, and then to understand, like, not just identify it, because a lot of times it's easy to go, hey, we're all depressed, you know, let's go take a break. But like to be able to go, okay, how do I shift this and how do I make this a positive is super powerful. So I love that.
Yeah.
Very cool. Okay, so here is question number 4. This is very open. This is one of my favorite questions to ask people. But what is something that you love to talk about but never do because no one ever asks you about it?
I know, when I saw you asking this question, I was like, oh my God, like this is such a crazy question. Cause I'm like, and I don't think about that stuff, but one of the things I love talking about, and I think I didn't tell you I was going to say this, but one of the things I love talking about is the impact of like classical music on culture. Okay. That was like, I know we didn't say that because we talked about
I love it. Let's do it. Let's go down that road.
Or even just like, I'm the daughter of a financial analyst. And so analyzing just runs in my blood. And then I have a counseling degree. So I think I therapize the crap out of people. But yeah, I'm like always therapizing in my brain. Everything, not people, just everything.
Yeah.
But I just love breaking down art and like history and like even decisions, like marketing decisions, or like I love comparisons. I love, like, I was just recently, someone was telling me like, oh, like they were comparing Silo, the show, and Severance, and they're just like, they're talking about like different things like that, where I'm like, I love just making cultural connections to like things. And one of the things I love is music. And so I love deliberating over like art and music and just talking about classical music and like the effect that it has on culture today and like how we're still being impacted by things like that. That's like one of the things I love talking about. And I love And the Writer Is, that podcast. I like love that podcast. You should definitely check it out. If you love songwriting, it's a great little expose on songwriting. But that's one thing I love to talk about. And then like I feel like a lot of people will ask me about my mental health background, and they'll, you know, that they know that about me, but I have like a personal, like, I feel personally like called to like encourage women in ministry as well. And just motherhood right now has been such a big part of my life. And just, there were so many preconceived notions I had about it that I feel like are nothing like what it is. And it's better than I thought in a lot of ways, but also like really terrible. Because I do not feel like, and I say this with all the boldness we talked about, but I do not feel like the Christian music industry is fair to like women in ministry, women that are touring artists, like women songwriters. I think we've come a long way. But I think that has been a challenge or a conversation that I'm like talking to more people about, and representation, just like me being not black or white, but brown, and just representing a really niche part of the community, just finding ways to make space for people like me. And I think that's an unpopular thing. And I've been kind of having conversations with people, especially like music labels and churches, and just in a really like, it's to engage in conversation, not to cause controversy, right? But really just to engage in conversation and being like, what does it look like to have, you know, our input here? Or like, you know, how would the church look different, or how would the industry look different if like this was represented well? And, you know, I just think those conversations, people are very afraid to kind of broach 100%. That subject. And just tying back to the first thing I talked about, so much of culture today is influenced by different like colors and races. And I grew up in New York and in Queens, and like it's a mishmash and like a cultural like melting pot of experiences from immigrant population. So I think it's just running in my blood. And so to me, to come to an industry that is predominantly one thing, like, you know, I think it's like, I always feel the boldness to be like, yeah, what do we bring to the room? And maybe what you thought isn't exactly what it is. Like, and let me share with you my experience of this. And most of the time the conversations have been really, really graceful. So I'm really grateful that people are open to that. But I think we can always do more and do better. And, but I think it also involves like sitting down at tables with people and, you know, breaking bread and living life and educating in a way that's not, like in your face or assertive in that way, but like just gentle and soft. And, cause some people really don't know, like, you know, some people really, really don't know, and I can't be mad about what they don't know, but I can use I can use the opportunity to educate and, in my small way. And, but those are two things I think, I don't even know how many things now I mentioned, but those are some of the conversations that I feel like people don't really ask me about, but I'm very passionate about. So,
no, I love that. And I think like to your point too, like, I mean, growing up, my worship experience was like, and this is not a knock, but it was like all Chris Tomlin, all like, you know, that era of like worship music. And so Maverick City, when you guys started putting music out and it started really catching on in churches, was the first time I was like, oh, there's like other people out there and there's other styles of doing worship music that aren't, you know, this certain thing that I've been exposed to. And so I think in a lot of ways you have pushed that just awakening for people, even if maybe they don't realize it, you know, like, it's just like an unconscious, like, oh, okay, that's cool. Like, I didn't know that. Cool. So that's
Thanks
incredible.
For saying that. That was, that was a confirmation of a lot of what we wanted to do and aimed to do, was to bridge that gap. And I think in a lot of ways we did.
Yeah, no, I think you 100% did. And it was really beautiful. I think it opened it almost made there be permission, to be like, okay, we can do things a little bit differently. We can integrate more people from different backgrounds, and we don't have to have, these separate cultures of church that never mix, So I think it was beautiful to see that kind of really happen in a cool way. And I would say, I think you guys definitely led the charge there. So yeah, you talked a little bit about classical music, which we're both being violinists. I also love classical music and have gone through phases of listening to classical music, which is, I feel like people are like, that's so nerdy, but also if you just sit down and like listen to a beautiful, like it doesn't even have to be like super niche and like down in the woods, just like some sort of Mozart or something like that.
Yeah.
You're just like, wow, this is
literally
amazing.
Incredible.
Yeah.
Like, and the reason how I got back into it also because of my daughter.
Yeah.
She was like obsessed. She was obsessed with the Nutcracker.
Okay.
And that was like her, oh my gosh. I'm like, actually it's been a few weeks where she hasn't asked for it. And I'm like, shit, but we gave her one of those storybook orchestra books where it's like, you open it and it like you press a button. And it's like a part of one of the pieces will play on each page.
Yeah.
She was obsessed with that. She was listening to the whole soundtrack. It was all that was in my head. And then she graduated from that to Vivaldi, Fourth Seasons.
Yeah. Oh, there you go.
Which I played as a kid.
Yes. Yeah.
And so then I started listening. Yep. Yep. I was
Third
listening
position.
to that. Like, exactly. I was listening to that for so long. So I just have been like in that classical world more recently and just so inspired by the sounds. Like, tell me you're not going to sit in an actual hall and listen to this and not feel something. Like you're lying.
Yeah.
You're lying.
No chance.
You have to be lying. Yeah, there's no chance.
Yeah. No, I love that. That's amazing. We'll have to trade artists because I haven't listened in a long time, but I love it.
Oh, I have some really, really good ones. Like,
okay.
We'll exchange.
Yeah,
contact.
Please send them to me because it's something I need to get back into. And my daughter, so she listens to, she just wants to watch church all the time, which is great. I have no problem with that. But she literally watch church. She wants to watch our church's live stream, and she wants to hear like the same 4 or 5 songs over and over again. So I got.
She's gonna start getting critical. Like, Daddy, that doesn't sound right. Like,
she's gonna be like, why did they do that camera angle? Yeah.
Yeah.
They're using old cameras.
She's going to be trained up to be a little spokesperson.
She is. Yeah, she's going to be a force to be reckoned with for sure.
I love it.
Okay, so last question, and I know we're getting long on time, but you said you have time, so I'm going to take a little bit more.
Yes, go ahead.
So what would you say to moms and dads out there, and you kind of mentioned this, that are juggling? I mean, like, this is me, honestly. So, like, what would you say to me, like, as, the background that you have, where they're juggling ministry, sometimes full-time, part-time, they're juggling their marriage, they've got kids, their own health, and dealing with that sort of stuff. And, they're struggling with burnout. Maybe they have an extra job on the side. Everyone's got to have their little side hustle, like, and how do they stick and stay faithful to what God has called them to do?
Great question. Hard question, because I'm going to tell you an answer that I'm trying for myself. And we just passed Pentecost Sunday, and leading up to it, there's a whole series on revival. And we were kind of exploring in our church that we're attending. We were exploring different moves of revival in scripture and sorry, not in history is what I meant to say, in history in different parts of the world. And I really felt God was pushing me to experience a personal revival of my own. And, I had been in a recent retreat that I led at, and it was very prayer room vibes where we were I was leading at it, but I had not been into a prayer room. I grew up listening to prayer rooms. I grew up kind of like playing almost like I'm in a prayer room by myself, but I haven't done that in a long time just because of life, ministry. Like, I feel like it's also like, I was just sharing this, but I was like, I feel like when you're married, it's almost like weird to have like alone time, like to sing, because it's just like, oh, someone's like listening all the time. It's like, get out of the house, like do something. So I'm like,
I need some privacy.
But I feel like ever since I'd gotten married, like I just felt like there was always someone here. Like, and I'm just like, I don't, like, I want this to be my time. Like, basically.
I've won 3 Grammys and all that, but I need it to be.
Yeah, like, I'm just like, I want to be alone. But also, it's like when you're living in like a small apartment or like, you know, like it's hard to like be alone and have a quiet time. And I think one of the things I felt God was pushing me to do was just being like fighting for that time and fighting for that time to like be alone. And it doesn't have to be this real like structured thing. Like for me, it was like even just getting back on my keys like that are right here and just getting back on there and just spending at least like 15 to 30 minutes just singing and like singing loud, like singing as if I would sing if I was invited to an event, because I haven't been doing that on my own, like outside of songwriting. Like most of my quiet time is like, I'm not really using my full voice. And I'm only mentioning the voice thing because I've noticed my voice has gotten tired and more like not, it's like a muscle. So the less you use it, the less strong it gets. Right. So because I'm just not doing as many events, I'm just, my voice is not being used as much. So I'm getting more tired when I do go to events because I'm just, it's like a muscle.
Yeah.
And so I just felt led. I felt like I was calling me to do this personal revival thing. And then I was like, okay, like maybe I need to get back into playing again and just singing. And so I started doing that. And I really feel like that was what I needed. And so I want to encourage, and you don't have to play something like that. For me, that was my thing. But I'm kind of in this season where I'm encouraging people to go back to the thing that drew them in. Like whether it was reading scripture, and like everyone should read scripture, but like maybe, you know, for you it was like really investigating a certain chapter and looking up something, like, you know, or maybe it's prayer and like intercession kind of prayer. You know, for me, it was kind of a combination of all those 3 things on this piano, like singing scripture, or like, you know, just getting myself back into this daily like habit, but really singing like for my voice too. Like, and I felt like there was a strength coming back to it. And that's kind of my encouragement for moms and dads. Like, I know it's really tough to like make time, but if that means you have to get up early, if that means you have to like kind of do it right after the kids go to sleep, like really try to fight for that time. And if it's not something you can do every day, like try every other day. If it's not every other day, like try once a week, like really just try to get some sort of consistency. I do feel like those rhythms really impact our day-to-day life. Like I really feel like the days that I'm here and I'm like giving that 15 minutes here, I do feel prepared. And I feel like God also speaks to, like, I can hear him clearer, like when I've done that.
Yeah.
And so that's what I would say. As hard as that is. And sometimes it's even inviting your kids into that, maybe give them an instrument. And I know that's hard, so maybe not, but I don't know, like being creative though, like finding ways to be creative. Like I remember there was one video I saw of a mom who was like trying to read scripture, and she gave her daughter, who's a little bit older, albeit, but like gave their daughter her Bible that was like a picture Bible. And like they spent 15 minutes like
sweet.
reading by themselves. But it was like their time, you know, like, you know, kids respond to any sort of structure. They want to just do stuff with us. So that was like really cool to see. And even if it's like, you know, sometimes I'll read my daughter's Bible and I'm like, wow, like that, I remember that. And then like after that, I'm kind of thinking on it, or like I'll look it up, or, you know, so it gets harder. But I think parents, we need to be more creative about how to fight for that time. Yeah. Because we fight. I mean, we'll get a shower in and we'll brush our teeth. So what are small ways that we can do to like kind of get those things? Because this is just as important, and I promise you your life is going to get better for it. Yeah. And so, yeah. I love that. That's what I would say. And I love what you said too earlier about like going back to what originally got you into it. 'Cause I think like so often, and this is kind of what our theme is for this year at conference, actually, shameless plug, you should come. But like so often we get this gift, we get started in it, and then we get busy and we start doing, you know, albums, or we start creating websites, or we start designing things, or we start producing, or whatever it is.
and we kind of lose like our love for the gift itself, and we get stuck in all this administrative life stuff. And so like a lot of what we're talking about this year is like the entering into God's presence a lot of times is just the door, like the doorknob that opens that is the gift that he's giving you. And so if you're a worship leader, just going back to worshiping and going back to just singing for yourself, not for Sunday morning, not for the production, not for, you know, writing, which something may come out of that, but really truly like leaning into the gift alone is a great way to kind of reconnect with why am I doing this, you know? So I love that.
That's a great point.
That's great. Okay. I have one last question, and this is like this on there, but this is random. Are you ever going to start taking counseling clients again?
Ooh, maybe like later. Well, I moved to a new state, so I have to like the license thing. I'm not a licensed counselor yet. Yeah. So a lot of the clients that I've seen were like in training at the end of training kind of thing. Yeah. Yeah. Because we had to do an internship, practicum, all that stuff. Yeah. But I thought about it and I'm like, so being a counselor really requires you to have a really strict schedule. It would really be me like not having to do music anymore. Yeah. As consistently. Well, I wouldn't be able to travel as much. Yeah. So that's what I'm like, if I get older, if I'm in like my 50s and I'm just like, you know, songwriting's not for me anymore. Like if I ever got there, maybe I would do it. Okay. But I do feel like I would actually, more than that, more than seeing clients, I do think I would get my PhD and do counselor education. Okay. That's what I think I would do. Very cool. I love to teach and I'm passionate about counseling. So I feel like maybe I do that over. Yeah. PhD is like 5 million years and we're going to Jesus comes before then. So
yeah, it's literally in school for forever. So cool. Well, that's random, but I was like, that'd be interesting. Might be interesting to know. Okay. Cool. Well,
thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much for your time. Sorry we went over, but so thankful. And we're super bummed you won't be at SALT this year, but maybe
I know,
in future
but
years.
Maybe next year. Next year.
Yeah. 2026. Yeah. 2026.
2026.
What year is it? I don't even know.
I know, we're forgetting.
Well, like event planning, you're always thinking like, anyway, I never know what week or year it is anyway. Well, thank you so much, guys. If you want to learn more about Maryanne, go listen to her music, go check her out. All the links to her stuff will be in the show notes, so feel free to go look at that. And then if you want to hear her, we have some clips of her on our social media, or you can go check out hers. So, yeah. Thank you guys so much. Thank you, Maryanne.
Thanks.
Take care. Bye. Thank you so much for taking some time to listen to the podcast this week. We hope it was valuable. We hope you learned something new. We hope you'll come to SALT. If you found it valuable, please just take a few minutes, subscribe to the podcast, give us a 5-star review. It's helpful to let us know how we're doing. And then also go fill out that feedback form if you want to kind of share some ideas or how this season has been valuable to you. That's going to be super helpful as we start to plan season 3. Next year. Also, if you want to learn anything else about Amplio, the Worship Classic, our guests, anything like that, that's always tagged in the show notes. Make sure to share it with a friend so they can learn as well. And we will see you next week.
See you then.